Without knowing he was the ex-convict who signed the $900 million deal, they beat him in front of 200 executives. Marcus Cole stood motionless as champagne dripped down his jaw, his white shirt stained dark. The ballroom at Sterling Financial Tower buzzed with laughter, sharp, cruel, the kind that comes easy to people who've never been punished for anything. "Security!" shouted David Hartwell, the company's chief operating officer, his voice slicing through the string quartet playing softly in the background. "Get this street rat out of here before he steals something." Marcus was 36. He'd spent 8 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit: frame job, dirty cops, evidence planted in his apartment while he slept. The system chewed him up and spat him out with nothing but a record that followed him like a shadow. 2 years after his release, he'd rebuilt everything from scratch. Patents, technology, silent partnerships with people who saw past the conviction. Tonight, he owned the investment firm finalizing the largest tech merger in the state's history. Nobody in this room knew that. "I'm here for the presentation," Marcus said quietly, showing his invitation, a black card with silver lettering that read Sterling Global Partners, Executive Summit. Hartwell snatched it from his hand, squinted, then tossed it on the floor. Fake. Obviously. He turned to his wife, Amanda, whose diamond earrings caught the chandelier light. "Can you believe this? They let anyone in these days." Amanda smirked, her eyes sweeping Marcus from head to toe. Probably thought the free food was worth the risk. She leaned closer to her friends. "Look at those shoes. Thrift store, maybe Goodwill if he's lucky." Marcus wore a simple navy suit, clean but unremarkable. His shoes were leather, broken in, not flashy. He preferred it that way. Attention was dangerous when you'd learn to survive by staying invisible. A security guard approached, hand hovering near his radio. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me." "Check the guest list," Marcus replied calmly. "Marcus Cole. Registered 3 weeks ago." Hartwell laughed louder. "Marcus Cole. The investor." He turned to the crowd gathering around them. "This guy thinks he's the Marcus Cole." Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" Another voice, "Post it. This is gold." Marcus didn't move. He'd been here before, not this exact room, but this exact energy. People deciding his worth based on assumptions. 8 years in prison taught him patience. Taught him how to wait for the right moment to strike back. What those executives didn't know was that Marcus had been watching them for months. Every careless email. Every arrogant assumption. And the storm he was about to unleash wouldn't just embarrass them, it would erase them. Hartwell grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing server. He held it high, performing for the cameras, now recording everything. "Here's a lesson, everyone. Know your place." He tilted the glass. Wine splashed across Marcus's face, warm and sharp, soaking into his collar. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but they were performative, the kind people make when they're entertained, not horrified. Marcus wiped his face slowly with the back of his hand. His eyes never left Hartwell's. He didn't flinch. Didn't shout. Just stood there, radiating something that made a few people shift uncomfortably. "Feel better?" Marcus asked, his voice steady, almost kind. Hartwell blinked, caught off guard by the calmness. "Yeah. Actually, I do." Marcus nodded once, then turned toward the exit. His footsteps were measured, deliberate. He didn't look back. Inside, rage burned hotter than anything he'd felt in years. Not the explosive kind that gets you locked up again. The cold, calculated kind that plans every move 3 steps ahead. As he reached the hallway, a young server stopped him, offering a towel. "Sir, I'm sorry. That was wrong." Marcus took the towel, gave her a small smile. "It's fine. Some people need to learn lessons the hard way." He pulled out his phone. One message. That's all it took. Execute Protocol 0. Immediate effect. Behind him, music still played. Laughter still echoed. They had no idea the floor was already crumbling beneath them. If this story is pulling you in and you want to see how karma catches up to those who think they're untouchable, don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. Marcus pressed his thumb against the stained fabric of his shirt, the wine already drying into a darker patch. His reflection stared back from the polished steel doors, calm on the surface, volcano underneath. When he reached the lobby, his phone vibrated. 3 messages waiting. The first was from Elena Rodriguez, his attorney and the only person who knew the full scope of tonight. Saw the video. Already trending. You okay? Marcus typed back quickly. Better than they'll be in about 10 minutes. The second message was from his business partner, an older man named Thomas Chun who'd taken a chance on an ex-convict with a patent portfolio and nothing else. Protocol 0 confirmed. All systems active. Board meeting starts in 7 minutes. They don't know yet. The third message made Marcus pause. It was from his parole officer, sent 2 hours ago. Checking in. Hope the summit goes well. Proud of how far you've come. He pocketed the phone and walked toward the parking garage. Behind him, through the glass walls of the building, he could see the gala still glowing bright. Music drifting faintly. People drinking, laughing, celebrating a deal they thought was already done. Back inside the ballroom, David Hartwell stood near the bar, retelling the story for the 4th time. I'm telling you, the guy actually thought he could blend in. Dressed like he shopped at a clearance sale. Amanda sipped her martini, scrolling through her phone. It's already got 15,000 views. Someone tagged it, Executive Karma. She laughed. Though I'm not sure where the karma part comes in. He got exactly what he deserved. A younger executive named Trevor approached, phone in hand, face pale. David, you need to see this. Hartwell waved him off. Not now. I'm enjoying the moment. Trevor's voice cracked. The merger. It's suspended. The music didn't stop, but conversations around them did. Heads turned. Hartwell grabbed Trevor's phone, reading the notification banner flashing across the screen. Sterling Global Partners, emergency board meeting called. All executive staff report immediately. What the hell? Hartwell muttered. He pulled out his own phone. 6 missed calls. 12 unread emails. Every single one marked urgent. Amanda leaned over his shoulder. Why would they suspend it? The contract was perfect. It is perfect, Hartwell snapped. But doubt crawled into his voice. Across the room, other executives checked their devices. Whispers turned into louder murmurs. Someone near the stage said, the investor pulled out. That's the only explanation. Another voice, but why? Everything was locked in. Hartwell's assistant rushed over, breathless. Sir, Mr. Patterson wants everyone in the conference room now. He said it's critical. Hartwell straightened his tie, trying to regain composure. Fine. Tell him we're coming. He turned to Amanda. Stay here. I'll handle this. She grabbed his arm. You don't think it's because of that guy? Hartwell forced a laugh. Come on. He was nobody. But his hands shook slightly as he buttoned his jacket. The conference room on the 15th floor felt cold. Mr. Patterson, the firm's managing director, stood at the head of the table, his face gray. 8 other executives sat in stunned silence, staring at their laptops. Sit, Patterson said flatly. Hartwell sat. What's going on? Patterson pressed a button, and the screen behind him lit up. It showed an email chain, dozens of messages between Sterling Global and a shell corporation identified only as Vanguard Equity Solutions. Vanguard Equity Solutions, Patterson began, his voice tight, is the primary investor behind the $900 million merger we were celebrating downstairs. Okay, Hartwell said slowly. So what's the problem? Patterson's jaw clenched. The problem is that 20 minutes ago, Vanguard withdrew their offer. Completely. No negotiation. No explanation. Just a single-line termination notice. Silence slammed into the room. Trevor spoke first. Can they do that? They can, Patterson said. And they did. The contract had a 48-hour revision clause. We're still within the window. Hartwell felt his chest tighten. Who runs Vanguard? Patterson pulled up another document. A corporate filing. At the top, one name stood out in bold. Marcus Cole, founder and principal owner. Hartwell's stomach dropped. Someone whispered, "Wait. Marcus Cole? That's the name of the guy, David." "Shut up," Hartwell hissed. Patterson turned slowly, eyes locked on Hartwell. "You know him." Hartwell opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Patterson's voice turned sharp. "Someone explain to me why our $900 million investor just walked away 30 minutes after a video of him being assaulted at our event went viral." The room erupted. Voices overlapping, panic spreading like fire. "You poured wine on the investor? Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Hartwell stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. "I didn't know. How was I supposed to know?" Patterson slammed his hand on the table. "You weren't supposed to assault anyone, period." Amanda burst into the room, phone raised. "David, the video hit 500,000 views. People are calling for boycotts. They're saying we're," she stopped, reading from her screen, "elitist criminals who prey on marginalized people." Hartwell felt the walls closing in. His career. His reputation. Everything he'd built crumbling in real time because of one man he'd underestimated. Outside, Marcus sat in his car, windows down, cool night air washing over him. He didn't need to be in that conference room to know what was happening. He'd lived through enough injustice to recognize the sound of it catching up to someone else. His phone buzzed. "Elena again. They're scrambling. Want me to respond to any settlement offers?" Marcus typed back. "No settlements. Let them sit with it." He started the engine and drove toward the life he'd earned back, one careful, calculated step at a time. 3 days passed. The video didn't fade, it multiplied. News outlets picked it up. Think pieces flooded social media. "Ex-convict humiliated by elite executives" became the headline nobody could ignore. Comment sections erupted with anger, solidarity, and calls for accountability. Marcus watched it all from his apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a neighborhood most millionaires wouldn't visit. He'd bought it after his release because it reminded him where he'd come from. The walls were bare except for one framed document, his first patent approval, signed the same week his parole ended. Elena sat across from him, laptop open, scrolling through legal filings. Sterling's trying to save face. They issued a public apology this morning. Generic, corporate, spineless. Marcus sipped his coffee. Apologies don't rebuild credibility. "No," Elena agreed. "But lawsuits do." 3 former employees came forward yesterday claiming discrimination. 2 more this morning. The floodgates opened. Thomas entered from the kitchen, holding a stack of printed contracts. He was 72, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, a venture capitalist who'd lost his own son to wrongful imprisonment. When he met Marcus 5 years ago, he saw something others missed: intelligence buried under injustice. "The board's panicking," Thomas said, dropping the papers on the table. "Hartwell's been placed on indefinite leave. Patterson's scrambling to contain investor backlash. They're hemorrhaging money by the hour." Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled. "How much?" Thomas smiled faintly. $43 million in lost contracts. Another 60 in frozen partnerships. Companies don't want their brands associated with that video. Elena glanced up. "You could end this now. Accept their settlement offer. It's substantial." Marcus shook his head. "This isn't about money." "Then what?" she asked, though she already knew. "Accountability." His voice hardened. 8 years. I lost 8 years because people like Hartwell assumed I was guilty without proof. No trial, no fairness, just prejudice dressed up as procedure. Thomas sat down slowly. "You want them to feel what you felt." Marcus met his eyes. "I want them to understand that arrogance has consequences." Elena closed her laptop. Then we moved to phase 2. What Sterling Global didn't know, what the public didn't know, was that Marcus had been planning this long before the gala. The humiliation wasn't random bad luck. It was inevitable. He'd studied their culture for months. Watched how they treated service workers, assistants, anyone they deemed beneath them. He knew someone would eventually make a move. He just needed to be in the room when it happened. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus had quietly purchased a 30% stake in Sterling through shell companies. Not enough to control decisions, but enough to access internal communications. Emails. Financial projections. Every careless message executives sent assuming nobody was watching. And they'd sent plenty. Elena pulled up a file on her screen. This is from Hartwell's personal email. Sent 6 months ago to the CFO. Marcus read it aloud. We need to cut costs on the Springfield project. Hire cheaper labor. Doesn't matter if they're undocumented, just make sure there's no paper trail. Thomas exhaled slowly. Textbook exploitation. Elena scrolled further. There's more. Discriminatory hiring practices. Falsified safety reports. Tax evasion through offshore accounts. She looked at Marcus. This company isn't just arrogant. It's corrupt. Marcus felt something shift inside him, not anger anymore, but clarity. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about dismantling a system that protected people like Hartwell while crushing people like him. Send everything to the ethics board, Marcus said. Then leak it to the press. Elena hesitated. Once we do this, there's no going back. They'll come after you. Let them. Marcus's voice didn't waver. I've been to prison. I've been stripped of everything. What are they going to do, humiliate me at another party? Thomas chuckled dryly. You're playing chess while they're still figuring out checkers. The following morning, the story broke. Every major outlet ran it simultaneously. Sterling Global's internal emails splashed across screens nationwide. Reporters dissected every line. Investigators launched inquiries. Shareholders demanded resignations. Hartwell's phone rang endlessly. His wife stopped answering hers. Lawyers advised silence. PR teams drafted statements that made everything worse. Meanwhile, Marcus received a call from an unexpected source, a federal prosecutor named Angela Lawson. He'd never met her, but she'd followed his case years ago. Believed in his innocence when nobody else did. Mr. Cole, she said over the phone, her voice professional but warm. I've been reviewing the evidence your team submitted. If everything checks out, we're looking at multiple federal charges. Marcus felt a flicker of something he hadn't allowed himself in years, hope. How long? Investigations take time, she admitted. But with this much documentation? 6 months, maybe less. He thanked her and ended the call. 6 months. He'd waited 8 years. He could wait 6 more. That evening, Marcus stood on his balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. His phone buzzed. A message from Thomas. Hartwell's been fired. Patterson resigned. The board's restructuring under federal oversight. Marcus typed back. Good. Now we rebuild it the right way. Because that was the part nobody expected. Marcus didn't just want to destroy Sterling Global. He wanted to transform it into something that valued people over profit. A place where someone like him, an ex-convict with talent and determination, could walk through the front door and be judged by their work, not their past. The plan was always bigger than revenge. It was about creating space for the next person the system tried to bury. And he was just getting started. The federal courthouse felt colder than Marcus remembered. He'd been inside one before, 8 years ago, when the system crushed him without mercy. This time, he walked through the front doors as a witness, not a defendant. Angela Lawson met him in the lobby, briefcase in hand, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Ready? Marcus nodded. Been ready. She led him down a marble hallway toward a conference room where Hartwell and 3 of his former executives sat with their lawyers. Federal investigators had spent 4 months building the case. Tax evasion. Labor exploitation. Wire fraud. The evidence Marcus provided had been the catalyst, but the crimes went deeper than anyone expected. Inside the room, Hartwell looked nothing like the man who'd poured wine with confidence. His suit hung looser. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. When Marcus entered, Hartwell's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Angela placed a folder on the table. Mr. Hartwell, you're facing 18 federal charges. Each carries significant prison time. Your co-defendants are cooperating. Your options are narrowing. One of Hartwell's lawyers cleared his throat. My client maintains his innocence. Angela didn't blink. Your client maintained his arrogance. Now he's maintaining a losing position. She slid documents across the table, emails, financial records, testimony from whistleblowers who'd finally found the courage to speak. Marcus watched quietly. This wasn't about gloating. It was about watching justice function the way it should have 8 years ago. Hartwell finally looked at him. You planned this. From the beginning. Marcus met his gaze. I planned to attend a business summit. You planned to humiliate someone you thought couldn't fight back. I didn't know. Exactly. Marcus's voice cut clean. You didn't know. Didn't care. Assumed you could treat people like objects and walk away untouched. Hartwell's lawyer raised a hand. Mr. Cole, please don't. Don't what? Marcus leaned forward slightly. Tell the truth? Your client poured wine on me because he believed his wealth made him untouchable. He exploited workers, falsified reports, evaded taxes, all while convincing himself he was above consequences. Angela added, the evidence is overwhelming. We have 53 documented violations spanning 6 years. Mr. Hartwell, you have 48 hours to accept the plea agreement or we proceed to trial. Hartwell slumped in his chair. His lawyer whispered urgently, but Marcus already knew how this ended. People like Hartwell didn't survive scrutiny. Their power existed in shadows, in assumptions, in systems designed to protect them. Shine light on it, and it evaporated. 2 days later, the news broke. David Hartwell accepted a plea deal, 7 years in federal prison, full restitution to defrauded employees, permanent ban from corporate leadership. 3 other executives received similar sentences. Sterling Global dissolved entirely, assets liquidated to compensate victims. Marcus stood in his apartment, watching the coverage. His phone buzzed constantly, journalists requesting interviews, former inmates reaching out with gratitude, companies offering partnerships. Thomas appeared beside him, holding 2 glasses of water. No champagne. Marcus smiled faintly. Never liked the stuff. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Thomas spoke. You know what the real punishment is? It's not the prison time. What is it? It's knowing he'll live the life you lived. Stripped of privilege. Judged before he walks into a room. Watched constantly, suspected automatically. Thomas paused. He'll understand now what he put others through. Marcus considered that. Maybe. Or maybe he'll just be angry. Either way, Thomas said, he's learning. The following week, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Amanda Hartwell stood in the doorway of his office, a modest space he'd rented downtown, nothing extravagant. Her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion. I don't expect you to forgive anything, she started, voice trembling. But I needed to see you. To say I was wrong. Marcus gestured to a chair. She sat stiffly. I laughed, she continued. When David poured that wine, I laughed. I thought you were nobody. Someone we could dismiss and forget. Marcus waited. I lost everything, Amanda said. Friends stopped calling. My family won't speak to me. I can't find work. People recognize me from the video and refuse service. Her voice cracked. I know it's nothing compared to what you endured, but it hurts, Marcus finished quietly. She nodded, tears streaming. Marcus leaned back. I spent 8 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. When I got out, nobody wanted to hire an ex-convict. Landlords rejected my applications. People crossed the street when they saw me coming. He paused. You're experiencing a fraction of what I survived. The difference is, you earned it. Amanda flinched but didn't argue. Here's what happens now, Marcus continued. You rebuild. Slowly. Painfully. You learn humility not because someone taught you, but because life forced you. And maybe, you become someone who doesn't laugh when others suffer. She stood shakily. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus didn't respond. She left, door closing softly behind her. Elena entered moments later. That was generous. It was honest, Marcus corrected. I'm not interested in cruelty. I'm interested in consequences. That evening, Marcus received the final document he'd been waiting for, Official confirmation that Sterling Global's remaining assets would fund a rehabilitation program for formerly incarcerated individuals seeking business education and startup capital. He signed it without hesitation. This was always the endgame. Not destruction for its own sake, but transformation. Taking something corrupt and rebuilding it into something meaningful. Thomas Cold. The program's approved. First cohort starts in 3 months. Marcus smiled. Good. Let's make sure nobody else has to fight this hard to be heard. 18 months after the gala, Marcus stood in front of a different audience. This time, nobody questioned his presence. The conference hall at Columbia Business School was packed. Students, entrepreneurs, formerly incarcerated individuals, journalists, and investors who'd learned to look past assumptions. When I walked out of prison, Marcus began, his voice steady, I owned nothing but a cardboard box of belongings and a record that followed me everywhere. Banks rejected my loan applications. Employers hung up during phone screens. Landlords stopped returning calls the moment they ran background checks. The room was silent, attentive. But I had something they couldn't take away, knowledge. Patents I developed in my cell using library books and borrowed legal pads. Ideas that didn't care about my past, only my capacity to execute them. He paused. That's what people like Hartwell never understood. They thought humiliation would break me. Instead, it clarified exactly what I needed to do. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. How did you handle the anger? Marcus considered the question. I didn't eliminate it. I redirected it. Anger without purpose destroys you. Anger with strategy becomes fuel. The rehabilitation program Marcus founded, Second Chance Ventures, had already funded 43 startups led by formerly incarcerated individuals. 3 had gone public. 12 were profitable. Every single one employed people who'd been rejected by traditional companies. Thomas sat in the back row, smiling quietly. He'd watched Marcus transform pain into purpose, and it reminded him why he'd taken the risk years ago. Some people, when given a real chance, don't just succeed, they redefine what success looks like. After the talk, a man approached Marcus hesitantly. Mid-40s, worn suit, nervous energy. Mr. Cole, I just got out. 6 years. I don't know where to start. Marcus handed him a business card. Call this number Monday. We'll talk about your skills and match you with resources. The man's eyes welled up. Thank you. Nobody else would even listen. I know, Marcus said simply. That's why we exist. Across town, David Hartwell sat in a federal correctional facility, wearing standard-issue clothing, eating standard-issue food, living a standard-issue life. No privilege. No exceptions. Just time, years of it, to reflect on how quickly arrogance crumbles when stripped of protection. His cellmate was a former accountant who'd embezzled funds to cover medical bills. They didn't talk much, but one evening, Hartwell asked, "Do you think people can actually change?" The accountant looked at him. Depends. Do you want to change, or do you just want to avoid punishment? Hartwell didn't have an answer. Meanwhile, Amanda had quietly started volunteering at a nonprofit supporting families affected by wrongful incarceration. She didn't publicize it. Didn't post about it. Just showed up, listened, and helped where she could. It wasn't redemption, not yet. But it was a start. Marcus received an email from her 6 months into her volunteer work. No excuses. No requests. Just a simple acknowledgement. I'm trying to be better. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. He didn't reply, but he didn't delete it either. The final piece fell into place when Marcus received a call from the governor's office. A new initiative aimed at criminal justice reform needed advisors who understood the system from the inside. They wanted his expertise. Elena urged him to accept. You've earned this platform. Marcus agreed, but on one condition, that formerly incarcerated individuals would comprise 50% of the advisory board. Real voices. Real experience. Not just token representation. The governor accepted. That evening, Marcus returned to his apartment. The walls were no longer bare. Framed patents lined one side. Photos of program graduates lined the other. A letter from his parole officer, framed and centered, read, "You didn't just rebuild your life. You rebuilt the path for everyone behind you." Thomas Cold. Congratulations on the advisory position. Your mother would be proud. Marcus smiled. His mother had died while he was incarcerated, another loss he couldn't recover. But honoring her memory meant creating the world she believed in, one where second chances weren't myths, but foundational principles. The best revenge, Marcus said quietly, isn't destroying people who wronged you. It's building something so meaningful that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. Thomas laughed softly. That's not revenge. That's transcendence. Maybe, Marcus admitted. But it feels better than any courtroom victory ever could. Weeks later, the video from the gala resurfaced, not as a symbol of humiliation, but as a teaching moment. Universities used it in ethics courses. Corporations referenced it in diversity training. It became a reminder that assumptions carry consequences, and dignity isn't determined by circumstances. Marcus never watched it again. He didn't need to. The moment that broke him temporarily had rebuilt him permanently. And somewhere, in boardrooms and ballrooms across the country, executives paused before making assumptions. Not all of them. But enough. Because they'd learned what Hartwell discovered too late. The person you underestimate today might be the one holding your future tomorrow. Marcus closed his laptop and looked out at the city. The same skyline that witnessed his humiliation now witnessed his impact. He'd walked through fire and emerged not burned, but refined. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Because real transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through resilience, strategy, and refusing to let anyone define your worth. And that's a journey worth following.